Greetings, nerds. This is Cena Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Paul. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well. Hope you're doing well this evening, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to make math work. I'm trying to math, and I'm not doing girl math. I'm just trying to do the math. And I think we're 1 week shy. We can do 2 episode groupings, and then do the finale. So for One Piece, which we will be talking about later tonight and diving into the first episode, for the next few weeks we can do 2 episodes, dive into One Piece. We'll continue with Ahsoka. Meanwhile, Marvel is shifting back release dates on their TV shows, and Will is going to explain to me what that all means because I know nothing about this.
Yes, so late last week, Marvel did shift their upcoming shows on Disney Plus. None of the movies have been impacted so far. But so as of now, the Marvels is still slated to be released in November. But the shows on Disney Plus have been switched around. One for the obvious reason, which is the strike. And then the second reason is, this really follows up on what Bob Iger had talked about a few months ago, where, the things are just too much is coming out of the fountain, and we need to dial it back a bit to really make things feel special and like events again. So with that being said, we do get the new release date for What If, which originally was supposed to come out earlier this year, but now, What If season 2 is going to drop around Christmas. So, I guess like Hawkeye did last year. Well, actually Hawkeye dropped around Thanksgiving, or was it before? But anyway, What If season 2 will drop around Christmas this year. Echo, which was supposed to come out in November, is now pushed back to January of 2024. It's my understanding that they're still planning on releasing all 6, I believe, episodes at once. So it's not going to be a week to week release. They're just going to drop it.
Mm-hmm.
X-Men 97, which is a continuation of X-Men, the animated series, was supposed to come out here in the fall, but now it's being pushed back to 2024. No month has been established, but it did say early 2024. Agatha, which had gone through multiple changes to the title. Originally it was House of Harkness, then Agatha Coven of Chaos. Now it's going to be called Agatha Darkhold Diaries. It's expected to come in Halloween of 2024. So I guess they're sort of tracking like they did with Werewolf by Night. Ironheart, which was, of course, Riri was introduced in Wakanda Forever, is no longer has a release date. So it's back on apparently it has been shot, but as far as all of, I guess, the post-production, all that stuff still has to take place. So it's, doesn't have a release date as of now. Daredevil, Born Again, of course, is halted production. We know that it was going on, but due to the strike, it had to stop. And so it's now expected, it originally was expected to come in spring of 2024. Now it doesn't have a release date. I guess it really is all dependent on how long the strikes go. And then lastly, Wonder Man, is, also has no official delay, date. It has also been delayed because obviously the strike. So that's the slate of TV shows. Loki is still coming October the 6th. I know they had I think it had a second trailer drop over Labor Day weekend. I didn't watch it because I've seen everything I need to see. I'm taking a Sarah Belmont approach, and I'm not watching anything more until the season starts. Right. But that's the latest on Marvel.
Yeah. So the only thing that's coming in November, between now and November, is Miss Marvels, or the Marvels, Miss
right.
Marvels.
Yeah. Well, that's true. There are 2 of them there, so.
All of the Marvels, the Marvelous, the Marvelous trifecta, which will be just a half hour longer than a lot of the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah.
It'll be real short. Well, I can appreciate this. we've had this discussion before. I can totally appreciate we want to make these projects become a moment, have life and not just like drop after drop after drop and then it just gets repetitive. However, if you had like pushed back Secret Invasion and dropped it and given it some breath, it wouldn't have made that show any better than it was.
No, yeah, that's the truth. I mean, and apparently that's an example of why Echo is being dropped as far as all in a bunch, because apparently I've heard from multiple places on various reputable, YouTubers and other critics that it's not very good. And so they're just like, okay, let's just rip off the Band-Aid, drop it and just move on.
I don't think anybody, I think with some of these projects that are spin-offs of projects that aired, within the first dozen of these shows, I'm not expecting any of the, like, who cares about Agatha anymore?
Yeah. It was a moment in time. Yeah. It was a snapshot moment in time, and the momentum and everything they had for that character is gone. Yeah. I'm kind of like, yeah.
Surprisingly though, a lot of people I know in the moment, because y'all were watching it with your own fan fiction going on simultaneously, were mad about the WandaVision, but over the years, WandaVision is up there in the top MCU show. And a lot of the first couple are, because it did feel connected. It felt like it was part of the plan. It was a new way to get these stories. And the shine is gone. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean that I still don't think TV does a better way of telling stories than movies do. But it's just that we're evolving and we demand, better products. I mean, we're going to talk about One Piece and all of that, as well as Ahsoka and her journey. And these shows are doing fine. And we've had just a crazy good year of TV so far. The quality of the TV shows that have come out this year, starting all the way back in January, my God, like nobody should forget, Last of Us kicked this off.
Yep.
We've been spoiled ever since. But yeah.
Yeah.
And, go ahead.
Yeah. One, speaking of Marvel things, other than Loki, there is season 2 of I Am Groot that dropped yesterday too. So I think it was just a little animated shorts, but that's the other thing that's out there too.
That's true. That's true. So we are in September. Loki comes out beginning of October, and then we have Miss Marvel's, or the Marvels. The Marvels in November. And then we're going to get, the Hawkeye? Echo in January.
Yeah. But you're right.
In December.
Yeah. No Marvel, other than What If season 2?
What If season 2 in December. Yeah, so they're spreading it out. I like the month to month, especially, I mean, with the writer strike going on, who knows when we're going to get real news. Yeah. Some of these promises.
Yeah. And it just seemed, and it seems like the studios are just, well, the studios aren't unified in what they want, except for trying to starve out all the creatives and the actors. But beyond that, it just seems that, the strike could easily go into next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I foresee happening too. The other thing that is coming soon, and I did not watch the new trailer for, I just put it on here because just as a reminder that Gen V is coming, which is the Boys spin-off series. It's a spin-off. It's not a prequel, right?
It's set, in between seasons 3 and 4 of The Boys. And that came from the official Boys Twitter account today.
What the heck do we call that then? It's not a prequel, it's not a sequel, it's this.
It's a spinoff.
It's a spinoff.
Yeah.
It's a show in this, interesting.
It's a spinoff in between the seasons. And, I saw this on the run sheet. I hadn't planned on watching the trailer, but then I did, after I saw it on the rundown, I watched it this evening, and it's, I don't know.
I don't like this reaction. So here's the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
This show has an uphill battle because I'm sorry, we have to hate him. However, Homelander makes that show.
Yeah.
He just does. And Anthony Starr playing him, and I always talk about it, the amount of fun he is clearly having with that part.
Yeah.
Like, it's so entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get this reaction from the trailer, as an avid fan of The Boys, I'm like, oh great, the cast chemistry is just not going to be there. Yeah,
and they have in the trailer, there's definite tie-ins, the congresswoman who calls, can cause people's, heads to explode and stuff. She's in it. And so I think they are picking up some of the, the vault scandals and all the things that Stan Edgar was doing. And so I see elements of The Boys there. So, the vibe is there, but I guess it's just one of those things like with a spinoff. Hopefully, if they can get the essence and the vibe of the source, the original show, I just got to get used to the new characters and stuff. So, but I don't know. It just felt like it was just a Netflix show, like trying to copy the derivative show copying The Boys.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out what's the fresh angle here. I mean, the trailer did sort of get into more of like sort of what the story is going to be this first season of Gen V. Right. But I just, I like I said, it just felt kind of like, I wasn't like pumped, like, okay, I can't wait for September 29th.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We'll definitely give it a shot, watch it, and see, and then nitpick and criticize the fuck out of it.
or we may absolutely love it.
Still nitpick, criticize.
And nitpick and criticize. We just wait till I get to Ahsoka tonight.
Oh, yeah. I saw some interesting tweets last night, that's for sure. I kind of got whiplash, but yeah, it's, like I said, it has an uphill battle to climb. Spinoffs, like, rarely are better, if not on the same playing field as the original, especially if the original is a massive success. So we'll see. And like you said, like, we don't know what the angle is yet. And, I'll be honest, The Boys, the first season, I think it took me a few episodes really to get on board with it. Because it grew and all of the satire of it, just, and the commentary that it provides on regular life is just so refreshing. Yeah. So I do hope they have a different spin, but we shall see. And then the last bit of news that, again, I have nothing about, I know nothing about, but like, Will, what is this Rotten Tomatoes scam?
Yeah, so Rotten Tomatoes, Vulture did a magazine did a piece this week about how Rotten Tomatoes, paid, some low-level critics to inflate the score for a film. And, it was a Daisy Ridley film, called Ophelia that was released, I want to say back. Huh?
Sorry. No, sorry. Like, as soon as you said Daisy Ridley, I'm like, oh, it's going to be Ophelia.
It
I have
was.
no idea why I did that pull. I've never seen the movie.
That's the one. Yeah. So, because for a film to be guaranteed, fresh, this is threshold 60% or higher. And so in the case of Ophelia, whenever it was originally released at a film festival, it only garnered a 46%, score from the critics. And so the PR firm, Bundle 15, started paying low-level critics $50 a pop to write favorable reviews so that the score could get bumped up over that 60% threshold so it can get the freshness score. And the reason why I just bring this up is because I know a lot of times we do reference the tomato score. I mean, everybody goes to Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, to just gauge critic reception, audience reception and stuff. And, and of course, this is just the latest line of issues that Rotten Tomatoes has had. I mean, I know they have tweaked their metrics and, their audience scores and stuff before because their people were review bombing things. But this one was one of those that was like, wow. All right. First, I would definitely wanted to share this information, but, not to, because I think it does get to some of the things that you and I talk about every week on this show, which is sometimes, for example, when things get released and they cherry pick reviewers and stuff to inflate scores and to, it definitely does impact, could impact the viewing experience for someone, because if you see a show or movie has a pretty high Rotten Tomato score, and that's a metric that you use to decide whether or not you are going to go spend money to see something. I just wanted to share this story with our listeners, just so you know that, you may want to, look at some other things out there as far as CineScore. Of course, we always give our honest opinion about things as well. But in evaluating whether you want to watch a project or not, because, Rotten Tomatoes is pretty rotten.
Sorry, that was so. We'll be honest, was that part of their article, or did you come up with that all by yourself?
That was just me here on the spot.
Okay, bravo, my friend, bravo, because that was pretty genius. Rotten Tomatoes is pretty good.
I didn't have it in my notes either. I just got on a rift. It may have been an article, but yeah.
As soon as you were reading it, I bet you thought to yourself, note to self, make sure I say this because that pun is epic. Yeah, I think I have never personally used Rotten Tomatoes. I have had no interest in it. But if you are using it, just beware. I mean, and I don't think a lot of people are using it anymore. I think because podcasts have blown up so much and there's so much about specifically that niche of film and movie or film and TV show reviews, and whether it's podcasts or even just YouTube itself.
Yeah.
That I really have no idea. I'd be curious in the future to know how much people are still using that as a metric.
People do. I think, you and I, we're kind of nerds, obviously, and we're in this space. But when I talk to folks who are just sort of, who don't really listen to movie or TV review podcasts and kind of stuff. And they do look, and they go on their phone and buy tickets from Fandango or whatever. They do look at the score and say, hey, yeah, I saw it got X% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think some people do use it. Some people, and other people don't. It's just a lot of people, it's just word of mouth or
right
as well. So
yeah, a word of X. Word.
Yep.
I found that interesting. Now it's a repost instead of a retweet.
Oh, I'm still call it retweet. I try.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been inundated with us for over a decade. So
Yeah.
it'll take a long time before that habit changes,
Yep.
which then you just start thinking about the generation who's going to grow up with using X and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You youngins. All right. Well, finally, that brings us to our main event. So we never have talked about this on the show prior to tonight, and I will be very frank. It took, I think I sent you the direct message on Sunday night just saying, what if we start to watch One Piece on Netflix, which dropped last week.
Yeah.
And neither of us have read the
Manga. Yeah.
Manga, or seen the anime show. It's the longest running anime show, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Over 1,000 episodes. It's insane.
It's insane. Yeah. I think the only thing comes close is Naturo or something like that.
Yeah. It's just, and I've heard about this anime because I'm a K-pop fan, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we will not be going down. But I've heard about it, and I think we talked about the trailer maybe a few months ago when it first dropped. Neither of us were too keen on covering it, but because we're kind of in somewhat of a drought right now, we thought, why not we give it a try? So we're gonna cover it. Even though all the episodes are out, we're gonna still, like I mentioned earlier, tonight just focus on the first episode because I haven't watched any other episode. And then start covering 2 episodes at a time and then end it with a final review of the final episode as well as the season in general. I really liked this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it reminds me in a way a lot of how I felt about the first episode of Ahsoka, where it was simple. It had a lot to do, clear world building. It allowed you to understand that this isn't a small story. This is a grand story, while at the same time being simple enough to where it's like, okay, we're getting the crew together. I'm sorry, they're not a crew, but they are a crew. And we're getting some insight. And there were some good parallels. I will have to admit, part of the reason why I initially did not want to talk about One Piece was because just on the trailers alone, I was not very impressed with the costumes, the cinematography, or anything. Having watched the first episode, I'm at peace with it. Mainly because the fans of the actual anime and the books, they are obsessed with it. It is very true to what they know. And I'm like, if they're fine with it and they think it's spot on, then I have no reason to complain.
Yeah. I mean, there's been plenty of adaptations that we know from like Alita and some others that if the manga, anime fandom, if it's trash, they will let you know. And I had saw the same reaction as well, where it's just like everyone was just praising the transition from animation to live action.
And Netflix put money behind this. Like, we haven't got serious, CGI scenes yet. I know it's coming in future episodes, but I think that they did put enough money to where I think we have a solid starting point. And I wasn't thinking to myself while watching this, oh, that's clearly green screen. They're clearly on a set right now. No, I was just, there's something about it where it felt much more like a play.
Yeah. Yes.
Just based on the costumes alone, it felt very much like a play, and we were just following along. They did some quick jumps time jumps, because we like, the one nitpick I have, or maybe not the one, but the one I can think of at the moment, is I found it a bit jarring how we get introduced to Zorro and Nami in these separate like scenes. And then 5 minutes later, they're suddenly all in the same place with Colby and Luffy in the same bar. And I'm like, how did everyone get here so quickly? What is happening? And then it was just like, no, they needed to get here. We're not going to dilly-dally. We're going to get straight to it. We need to set up this crew so we can get going. Which is good. And Luffy, I thought he was going to drive me crazy. I thought he was going to be horrible. Mm-hmm. He's not horrible. He grew on me. He's not my favorite character. I don't have a favorite character at the moment, I'll be honest. But I was surprised by, especially by the end of this episode, how much I was like, you're in charge? Got it. I'm good with it. You're a bit stretchy. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think it was so, whenever you messaged me about this and, you know, I messaged you back, I was like, it'll be fun to talk about something new. Right. And explore and discover it together. Cause both of us, this is truly a series where we're both coming in at the same place where, you know, neither one of us knows the lore. Neither one of us knows all the ins and outs about it. So if there are any of our listeners who are also first timers to this IP, you know, enjoy the ride with us because we're going to be discovering it together.
Yeah.
And that honestly, I was looking forward to this after watching the episode last night. I was really looking forward to our discussion because I just feel like, I mean, yes, this is a clear, well-established universe, a lot of fandoms. I mean, it was like shot to #1 on Netflix already. Season 2's already been greenlit, apparently.
Yeah.
But for me, as someone who, you know, Star Trek, Star Wars guy and, you know, and Marvel and all that kind of stuff, I was looking forward to it because it's just refreshing to talk about something new. And you're right. It did feel like a play when when I started watching this and and like you, after I got past the 10-minute mark or so and I wasn't like reaching for my phone, then I was like, next thing I know, like the hour it was like a 64-minute episode. And once I got to the end, I was just like, I really had to stop myself and be like, no, I can't go to the second one now. It's late. I gotta get some sleep because I really did this, as you said, it was great world building. They did all the necessary pieces to introduce these characters and in a very engaging way. Luffy did. I had the same reaction. I was like, oh God, this kid's gonna like drive me. I don't know. But then when he's like dumping the water off the boat and then he's like jumping in the barrel and apparently I did watch a podcast today with someone who had, you know, who has the history and apparently this was a much bigger sequence, but all those little things worked. And I was like, oh, I gotta see where this kid's end up. And then when he gets the Kobe ship with Captain Aveda, and I like one of the things about setting things up. I liked how they set the characters up with the bounty because we're dealing with pirates.
Right.
And so when they had the like, you know, the wanted dead or alive and the bounty and how much it was and stuff. And so, you know, it gives some context to Zorro and also Luffy as well because he wants to be king of the pirates. So, it did all the right things as far as just setting things up. So for me as a person who, other than seeing like, oh yeah, I've seen this anime character, but really had no context for beyond just, you know, coming across it on social media or whatever. I got immersed in the world and it really brought me in. Unlike, you know, a show that didn't do that for me last year, which was an established universe, but, you know, in a different time period, Rings of Power, which is another show that invested heavily on set and special effects like Netflix did with One Piece. But I think this show did a better job of just opening up that world.
Yeah, man, Rings of Power. God, wow, I keep forgetting that show happened. But it did. It just, to compare them, they're, again, the only word I can really use is simple. This is just simple. But it's not simple where I feel like they think the audience is stupid.
No.
They know their story, not their story, but their lore. The world is vast and wide, and they have a lot to get to. But they just need, in this moment, in this episode, for the viewer to take away, Luffy wants to be a pirate. Zoro wants to be the best swordsman. Nani is a thief and hates pirates, but has some history. And then Colby wants to be a Marine. Like, they're setting the stage. They don't need to bore, like, 500 years ago, this person.
Yeah.
like all of the stuff and just monologue after monologue. Like the dialogue, nobody talked too much.
Yeah,
everyone had something to say. They said it, and it was moving on. And it was very simple conversations and a lot of just a lot of things that are hinting at history that's going to be told later on in the show, and also leading to characters that we still have yet to discover. Because one of the things I like about this show so far is, did we get a mustache twirling villain? We got like 4 of them.
We got 4 of them. We got Axam Morgan. He was kind of mustache twirly. We got his son.
Yeah, Vita was there. Yeah. We get this and that, but we also don't stick with them long enough, and they're not the big one. I found it interesting that they did a good job of very subtly in my opinion, of being like, Luffy wants to be a pirate. Pirates are bad. And then we get the context around why he thinks that they're good. And that's because he met the right kind of pirate. Yeah. And then that's how he ends up seeing something in Zoro, where Zoro has built his career around capturing pirates.
Yeah, I love that. What he did with Seven, with the bounty.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then yet he comes across Luffy, and suddenly, well, you're not a pirate. You helped me out. Like, maybe Zoro just hasn't met the right kind of pirate. And then you have Colby and that whole situation at the very end, which I thought was cool, where again, Colby chooses to stay behind because even though he lost faith a little bit in the Marines, and like not all Marines are good, some of them are bad, he, like Luffy, are just like, but that's what I want to be, and I know I'm not going to be that type of pirate or that type of Marine. So I think they did a lot of good parallels throughout the episode.
Yeah, they did. I'm still with Nami. I know she was the thief, and we're sort of getting, I like the way they introduced her, because they took the damsel in distress trope, and when she lured that other ship in, and then, and then whenever they like go over there, and then the next thing you know, she's on the ship just going away. I was just like, oh yeah, this is my kind of show.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. I was like, what? Oh, nice. Moving on.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. So, I mean, just those kind of things. And like even with Zoro, with like whenever they were hit in the bar, and like the little girl with the rice balls and stuff. And, he has this, even though originally he was kind of standoffish or whatever, he does have a code. And whenever, Axel Morgan's son started his shit, he, Zoro like took care of it. But then also, in that same scene, you had like, you could see where Kobe was still that very fearful character. Like, well, Luffy was just like enjoying all this stuff. He's like taking it all in, but all the, Kobe was just so like, still so traumatized by his being, Captain Aveda's pet and all. It really, again, great setup in this episode, because even though, like you said, the dialogue was very straightforward and very simple, there was a lot of like nonverbal acting and nonverbal things that were going on that just added much more levels to these characters that, like, as you said, I don't have a favorite one yet, but they all did certain things to make me want to, that it made me immediately invested in them, that I want to continue the series.
Yeah. I did not get bored during the big action sequence. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you why. And it's because, there were, the action itself wasn't boring because not everyone was fighting the same way.
Right.
And I thought it was very interesting how each of them were fighting. And in a way, Luffy was even kind of learning how to fight, and they were kind of learning how to fight together, as not a crew.
Yep.
And emphasis on not. And so I thought that was interesting, because oftentimes with the big fight scenes, it's just like everyone does the same thing and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, boring. Yeah. I've seen this, but I haven't seen this crew fight. And so it was a good, fighting match. And to go to your point about the dialogue, I want to ask you this question. At the end, we meet two characters. We first meet Garp.
Yeah.
And I had to look up who he was. I not who he was, but just his name, just because they didn't say it in the scenes. I was like, I need to know who this person is. And so Garp is like the big man on top, the commander of the Marines or something. He's high on the food chain. I don't know if he's the highest. I have yet to know, but he's pretty high up there. And he gets word about what happens in Shelltown and how Luffy, or a pirate in a straw hat, steals the map to the Grand Line. And they decide to turn around. They're already looking for something. They were on the lead to something else that I'm sure we'll find out down the road. But they turned around. Now, was it just me? I get the impression, just the way it was said and the reaction to his right-hand man, or from his right-hand man, I get the impression a pirate in a straw hat, maybe alluding to some kind of marine superstition, like a marine prophecy that this person will take down the Marines. I don't know why, but my mind went there. It's just we can't turn around. We're doing this right now. Like, this is our biggest lead that we've ever had to go get these people, and you want to turn around. And maybe I'm placing too much emphasis on a pirate in a straw hat, and just the fact that the map to the Grand Line was stolen.
Yeah.
So.
Or I mean, I guess the pirate in a straw hat. I mean, because with Luffy, I mean,
it just seems like in a genre, fantasy genre, there's always that prophecy of the one. They're usually some kind of fairy tale about, like, oh, this person will change the world forever if successful. And they don't know that they are the one until, like, kind of down the road. But, and again, I could be totally reading into it, and all it was the fact that he stole the Grand Line map, because that leads into the other final credit scene where we meet Buggy it's Buggy the Clown Pirate.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. who also hears about the map being stolen, but that's his map. And so but we have both the bad pirates and the Marines now are after Luffy and his not crew.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I guess that's to your point of as far as the world building and everything that they set up at the very, very beginning of the episode with the one pirate. I can't remember his name, who was executed, and, he shares his treasure, and of course all hell breaks loose in the town, when everybody just scampers out of there to try to find on the quest to find the map and find the treasure. So I think you have something there. I think there's definitely something there. I don't, clearly, since don't know any of the lore and stuff, haven't done any, I was very careful to only listen to one show where they talked about episode 1, so I wouldn't get spoiled about anything else. And, so I don't know, but I'm like you, I'm looking forward to seeing where this journey takes us.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, on that note, and no spoilers, guys. If you're going to spoil someone, just spoil Will.
No, don't spoil me. Don't spoil me. Even though I did find out what happened in The Last of Us, but that was my own fault. But don't, I'm not proactively looking out for anything.
Found out one thing that happens in The Last of Us Part 2. No one tell him anything else. You know what that one thing is if you're in the know. If you don't, you don't want to know.
Yeah. You know.
You know, but you don't know. Yeah. All right. That brings us to Ahsoka. I like this episode. I'm fine with this episode. Do I have issues with this? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The first big thing is this they clearly should have dropped this episode and last week's episode together. There was no need for this to be two separate episodes.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Yeah, but Will, how about you start this one off? Where do you want to start with Ahsoka?
Okay. So I was entertained. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the internet just lost their shit, I'm like, all right, it was a good episode, but I mean, people are acting like it was freaking Empire in some regard. I mean, I liked it. I enjoyed it, but I mean, and yes, I mean, whenever we, got Anakin at the end and it was in the world between worlds and stuff and all, it was a nice payoff for me as a Rebels fan. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but, I just looked at it. It was just one more leg on the journey. I enjoyed it. And also, and I got into a back and forth with someone on Twitter about this, about the lightsaber fights. And whenever you were talking about just now with One Piece, how the fight scenes were not boring. I kind of got bored with the lightsaber stuff in Ahsoka this week. Call me a heretic. I mean, I thought it was cool when Sabine, did the thing with Shem as far as, using the Mandalorian trick with the rockets, but I just felt I think for me, where I'm having issues, and this goes to our larger point we were making tonight about discovering new things. Uh-huh. I'm feeling I love Star Wars, but I just feel it's just a different flavor of the same thing.
Right. Literally. Quite literally.
And yeah. And so I'm enjoying it. I'm a fan. I enjoyed it, but I'm okay, but I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Just fill in a different character's name, but some of these tropes, some of these things, I mean, hell, I mean, to use one example, Sabine putting the helmet on. I mean, that's just, as soon as I saw it the first episode, it was like, or second episode, I was like, New Hope, or whatever episode it was in. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with this series. I'm enjoying it. It is some nice, as a fan of Rebels, and all, it's definitely like carrying forward some of the things I loved about that series. But, yeah, it's like, get some perspective, folks. That was just my read on this episode this week. So I know I'm not, so I might get some demerits in the Star Wars Club for not gushing over it like everyone else is, but that's just how I feel.
Well, welcome to the club. As someone who constantly is like so on Star Wars, because and before, when you were saying it's like a different flavor of the same thing, like it's still ice cream, it's still good, but you can also just get sick of it, and want to try a different flavor, and then it's like, but that's not like the good stuff. That's not like the original, or my favorite kind. But it is quite literally, and we were talking about this last time, and I can't like help bringing up again and again and again, is that just like with the MCU, we're getting Star Wars so much, constant. And yes, they're at different time periods, but at the same time, you're watching this story play out in reverse. So simultaneously, like you're watching the rebels in Andor come together to overthrow, that sets off A New Hope. And then simultaneously, you're watching the Empire rise up again so that we can get to the sequels. Like you're in reverse. So in a way, it's very fascinating, to have the story, to already be aware of how history in this universe has repeated itself a few times. And we've seen the high points play out, but now we're getting a lot of the in-betweens. Yeah. But at the same time, it is like, you do have to do it a little bit more differently. Like, come on.
Yeah. And I think, and that's where Andor, I think, worked, because that was, and I like and I think it's this, whenever you started, you noted that they should have put 3 and 4 together. And that was and it was very smart, because we even said that when Ahsoka started, it was smart of them to release episodes 1 and 2 together. So,
but I think why Andor worked more is because, let's be honest, Andor was just more mature. Ahsoka, it's, and I know, like, Clone Wars was an animated TV show. It was made for kids. This show, it's now live action. But I can see, especially in the writing, it's still leaning more towards like the kids.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, now too, well, there were some dark episodes where, especially just coming off a rewatch of Rebels again. There were some more.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm for the number of adults who have watched Clone Wars and are big fans of it, I know that it became more mature as it went on. Yeah. I'm just seeing in the writing and how things are going with this that it's not playing necessarily to the same audience as Andor did.
Right. Yeah. That's a very fair point. And it's not to say that it's bad writing, because,
right.
Yeah, it's just that, Andor is sort of like, your AP levels, and Ahsoka is sort of honors level as far as, if you want to take it into the high school academic context or something like that.
Yeah. It also just had a lot more monologues about politics, which, hey, I'm fine with Ahsoka not having it. But at the same, because I wrote down a few quotes that I did like a lot of what Balon said in this episode.
Yeah.
Because I felt like a lot of his lines had, were not so much exposition for the sake of explaining what's going on, but also hinting at his own past, where he's headed in this journey. The character who I think is making or breaking this series is really Sabine.
Yeah.
Because Sabine pulled, and I'm sorry, I thought about this like a half hour before we started recording. Sabine did what Star-Lord did in Endgame. In Infinity War. She pulled a Star-Lord. So if you watch the show and you come out of this episode saying Sabine did the right thing, and you did not say the same thing about Star-Lord, then I don't know you.
Yeah.
You're a very confusing person.
That's a great analogy, because it totally is a Star-Lord move. It totally was.
It's the same thing. Like you chose your own selfish desire of getting this person back, and you were coaxed into it, while at the same time, all that's going on in my mind is like, well, she's going to clearly give it up because the writers clearly need both the good and the bad guy to go on this one-way trip. Like, there's no way out of this.
Yeah. And I guess that's just it. I fell back to our conversation of last week when I was watching it, because we both knew somehow I was wrong in the sense that they both ended up going on the hyperspace ship. Cause I know after we finished recording, I started to like talk about World Between Worlds and all that kind of stuff with you. Like, you're like, Will, shut up. Just I'm tired. Seeing Anakin this week, I was like, oh yeah, I mentioned that to you. I was like, I was wondering when they're going to weave that into the story. But I'm glad you brought up Balin, because that character has been him and Shin they both have been the most fascinating characters in this series. And to your point about like the quotes that he had, as far as like, I know you on the rundown, you had Faith. I lost that a long time ago.
Yeah.
When he's talking to Elizabeth, and he shares like, the title of the episode was Fallen Jedi, and it really, it was telegraphing Anakin showing up, but also it was clearly about Ahsoka. It's also about Balin, because all of these people, the one thing they have in common is they left the Jedi Order in some form or fashion, whether it was, clearly when it would happen with Anakin, Ahsoka, and Balin. Balin, lost faith in the Order for whatever for various reasons during the Clone War period, because he knew Anakin. So,
right.
And I guess some of the things that the Order was doing, he was just like, he's not going the path of the Sith. Shin's going the path of the Sith.
Oh yeah. Shin is gonna kill Balin.
Yeah, it's all.
Or Balin, like somebody's gonna kill Shin. Like, you're more, I agree with you on Balin. Shin is just like, I've seen you before.
Yeah.
You're doing nothing.
The end of that episode, I was like, oh, Balin, watch your back, because she's going to drive that lightsaber right through you.
Yeah. I really fast forward through Balin, like totally, like, I don't know, coaxing Sabine, and just, it's like the reverse of hostage negotiations. Like, you want to be my hostage. Yes. Give it over to me. I will keep you safe until I kill you. But I did like that moment that she does, and then Shin, and I liked how they did it. I liked the sound, because there were that scene and a few other scenes, like the Ahsoka, Balin lightsaber fight. I was constantly thinking about Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the lightsabers fight from that movie, because there was a silence in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like a time and a pacing where I wish they hadn't cut back and forth with Shin and Sabine, because I've seen the Shin and Sabine stuff before.
Yeah.
I was fascinated more with Baylan and Ahsoka. And then I like that moment where Sabine caves and then Shin, like the sound is gone. It felt very, very Ben.
Yeah.
Kylo, like with Rey. But like, I understand why they had to do it that way. I wish they would have figured out a cooler way to do it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Cause it was so cause I guess that's the thing. It was like when Huang said at the beginning, stay together. Don't get separated. And then what did he do? I mean, I guess it's the telegraphing of stuff that I think is what kept me from like having the reaction that other people had.
Yeah, I've trained you well. I've like killed your spirit. Better watch out for those telegraphers.
Yeah, cause I was just like, oh, and like I said, I was entertained, but I wasn't like, I did laugh though. I did have a moment where I turned to my wife and I was just like, whenever, Maruk, got cut down, I was like, well, Mephisto, I was like, I guess that blows up all the Mephisto's, Maruk theories, cause, he was just some guy. He was just a guy.
Just a guy.
Just a guy who was conjured, and actually I think he was just conjured by the Dark Sister magic.
Yeah.
Cause especially with the green, dust that came out of him, between that and thinking about Thanos,
I think that what you're getting at is sometimes with these shows or these episodes, you get in there and you're like locked in. You're just watching, you're not thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But then every so often you have an episode where while you're watching, you're engaged, but you're also thinking, and you're like, okay, so this is going on. So the next thing will be this, and then this will happen, and then that will happen. And you don't, the moment you find yourself predicting or thinking too much about what will happen and you're not in the moment, you're like, oh, it's awful. It's not that it's an awful episode. It's just like, this is not the way to watch TV. I shouldn't be. I should be lost in the story, not trying to write the story while it's happening.
And that's where I was this week. I was, even when, now I will say it was the moment when she got pulled in the world between worlds. I even like analyzed that too, because I was like, okay, either Anakin pulled her out or, I did, because as soon as she woke up, I knew exactly where she was. I was like, she's in the world between worlds, even before Anakin like said a word. Cause that's, cause when they did the pan over the ocean and there was no body, I was like, okay, I was like, I started thinking about Rebels and thinking about Ezra. So, so this was one of those weeks where you're right. I was just, instead of just taking the story and just riding with it, I was being critical watcher and like I said, I enjoyed it, but I did have legitimate like yelp whenever they were in the world between worlds, because it translated so nicely into live action. So that did bring a big nerdy smile on my face, because, just for what that meant and what the possibilities they have with that now, by bringing it into live action and in particular with this story. So it did open up a lot of good doors for me, but at the same time, you're right. I think that's how I was watching this episode this week, where I was like, sort of like, okay, I'm seeing where this is going. I'm seeing where this is going, instead of just sitting back and enjoying it for what it is. Except for when Balin was on. I mean, he did. I mean, it's sad that we lost Ray Stevenson, because if we could have had him and his character around for a long time, he's just a fascinating character, like Kanan was. Again, another in Rebels, and I'm missing those fascinating characters in Star Wars that just sort of pop, because of situations like I had this week where I was just like, okay, yeah, I've seen this before. And damn it, okay, we're in a New Republic. One more rant, especially with Hera's story, and where again things kind of fell for me was, so we're in a New Republic era. We need to have some dialogue just to explain why Luke, Leia, and Han, Chewie, and all the rest of them are not engaged in this thing. Because
no.
Huh?
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. As someone, I need it. Maybe not you, but I do, because it's like, I mean, Hera, just some line, or maybe it's just showing how inept the New Republic is, that they're not bringing their A game, or maybe it's just because, they are standing things down as far as the military, and Leia's all fighting that fight and against Mon Mothma. I don't know, but I just felt like I need something like that, just because it's just, I mean, I guess the reason why I say that, you've shown Luke in this time period now, and you've had him in The Mandalorian.
And Leia appeared in Clone Wars, right? Leia appeared in Clone Wars, right?
Yeah. See. So no, because she wasn't born yet. But she showed up in Obi-Wan. She wasn't born yet in Clone Wars, because that was before Anakin and Padme got married.
But she was in Rebels.
Yeah.
Wasn't she in one of Dave Filoni's shows?
She was in Rebels. She was in Rebels.
I misspoke. When I said Clone Wars, I meant Rebels. Yes.
Yeah, she was in Rebels. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, that damn fucking fly. Yeah. I can see why it would be irritating. I guess in my mind, they're just holding it. They're waiting to drop it. They're gonna wait for it, just like what they did with Mandalorian.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I guess we were talking about earlier, with the MCU, I mean, with the Disney Plus shows, we've had, it's the same question that gets posed. Where are the Avengers? So.
It is, but I don't know. I guess that's maybe a poll to put up one of these days, is because we spend so much time complaining about the interconnectivity, and and we've seen this all before, and we want these stories to be bigger and expand outside these three people.
Right.
And so they do that, and then we complain, well, why aren't you mentioning why these guys are not here? Or why is that? And I'm like, you can't have the best of it.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's a fair rebuttal. But I mean, I guess, just given that they're on home one, because
these are not legit missions. I mean, Hera broke. She disobeyed orders. So I mean, I think you said it 5 minutes ago. Maybe it's just because the rebels, the new leaders, the New Republic doesn't know the fuck what they're doing, so the right people are not in the know about what's really going on here. So, and they got other things. I mean, Leia got eventually get pregnant.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's just, let's see. No, it's still just, not quite time yet. Not quite time.
Not quite time. The one thing I want to say before we sign off, though, is that rewind, everyone, back to when Will was talking about telegraphing and saying how the episode was named Fallen Jedi. Damn it, Will, you missed your opportunity. That was clearly telegraphing the fact that Ahsoka gets pushed off say, Cliff. Okay. There we go.
I missed it, that one. I was too wound up in my rant.
Good night, everyone. All right, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Oh boy. Hopefully next week I'm gonna be not watching things. I'm just going to enjoy the show for what it is and just sit back and enjoy the ride, because when you overthink things, this is what happens. But you can find me and disagree with me about fallen Jedi, whether they're falling off cliffs or falling off plot, at Will and Polk on Twitter, WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJBelmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at scene_n_nerd, and visit our website www.scenenerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.